it's Christian, we're talking about it. This is the Mike Charleston Show.
Alrighty, what is up? I'm just doing a little housekeeping right here. I unscrewed my microphone. So what is going on? Thank you for checking out the Mike Charleston Show. I am Mike Charleston, and we are welcomed. Did I not have the mics? I had the mics muted. Okay. Thank goodness Josh was here. Okay, so was I muted? Just Chuck.
Just
okay,
me.
So Chuck is here. There's Chuck, and he's not muted now. And Sarah's with us too.
I'm here.
So, all right. Well, today we got a good show for you. We're gonna do Sarah's Song of the Week, and we're gonna do some kind of game, I think. And our main topic. So, our main topic. What are we talking about today?
Love.
Love. Love. And it's funny because when I was telling Chuck what the subject was, both he and I had the same song in our mind.
Oh, wow.
So Sarah and I was like, oh, well, we could do What's Love Got to Do with It? And he was like, that's the same thing he was thinking about. We're not going to play that.
No.
But if I
But
had
now it's stuck in your head if you know it.
yeah, if you know it, if you know that song, it's time to check up on your colonoscopy. So yes, it's that time. So anyways, what's love got to do? So love, but what's specific about love? We were not just going to be talking about love as in generic, but it's so I was talking to someone this week, and it was Christians aren't loving. That's kind of the general consensus you get. There's like three things that Christians get accused of being. Let's see if Chuck can get the three that we came up with, because maybe he's got something new. Yeah.
Unloving.
There you
go. You gave me that one, right?
First one.
I would say maybe, what's the right word? Kind of somewhat reclusive, maybe.
Oh,
Kinda
interesting.
hold back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what do you know? The most popular verse that everybody on the streets
come on.
knows?
Is they're holding a beer in their hand and they're like, "Hey, man,
No.
don't judge me."
Oh, don't judge me.
Yes.
Judge
Judgmental.
not.
Yeah. So judging, I would say judging. I forget the third one we came up with.
Being hypocritical.
Yeah, hypocritical.
Yeah.
Hypocritical, judgmental, and unloving, I would say, are like the three, being like us for and no more.
Yeah, I was thinking self-righteous, which kind of goes with hypocritical. I
Yeah.
think.
Or judgmental, but those are kind of the negative aspects of Christianity, and it is a problem, there's no doubt. But anytime you have a standard, you are going to come across as judgmental. And no one wants to, I don't think anybody's like, hey, I'm judgmental, it's like that, whatever. And I think most people are going to be like, hey, I'm loving, so when I hear that, I get worked up a little bit like, well, what do you mean Christians are unloving? That's so easy to say, but where's the facts, So we were talking about, I think it was your sister that you were on the phone with, and she was like, well, I think people get mixed up with love and acceptance. And I was like, that's actually a good differentiation. I think that's a pretty good divider right there. Yeah. And so that's what we're kind of going to talk about, the difference between love and acceptance, because a lot of Christians, we're commanded to love. Yeah. That doesn't always make it easy, but we're commanded to love one another, love each other. Yeah. In fact, as we were going over, we might save this for a different podcast, but the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I've always taught that that's basically the same thing. That's one and the same. And in fact, I was proving myself out last night as I was going over some of these verses. And a lot of them were saying the great commandment, the royal commandment is loving your neighbor, loving your neighbor. It doesn't say loving God, because that's how you love God, is by loving your neighbor, because if you say you love God, that's very vague. How does that look?
Right.
Well, it looks like loving your neighbor, and all these different things that the apostles point out. Loving one another, encouraging and edifying, and blessing and praying for one another. All these different ways have ways to look like we love one another. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so how does it look to love?
Well, I think that's the important question, because I think a lot of people do find Christians unloving.
Right.
And so for me, it's like when I hear that, I want to look at myself and say, well, am I unloving? Like, what does love look like? Because God is love. And because he loves us, we now love each other. And that's how it's supposed to play out. So I'm like, is there something that I'm doing that is not loving? And sometimes that can be confusing for people. But I want to look at myself and say, how am I showing love? And am I loving or am I not loving?
No, that's fair.
I feel like that's a good evaluation that we should all do.
Well, and I think that we, as Christians, I can't speak for all Christians, but I'm guessing most Christians, we struggle with things sometimes, even though we're commanded to love. It's not always easy to love. We're commanded to forgive, but it's not easy to forgive. But we try. We're trying to do these things, whereas in the world, they don't care necessarily. Like if you offend them, they're not trying to make it right. They just they move on with their life. But we're commanded to try to make it right, even if it's difficult. Yeah. And so, sometimes we come across as maybe being unloving. But I think the big difference is the aspect of accepting and loving. I can still love, but it doesn't mean I have to accept your lifestyle or the way you live or the way you carry yourself. Yeah. In fact, there might be a time where I need to intervene because I love. And that's where it gets a little tough because we have a number of people that want to step in a little too much, and that's on maybe the judgmental side of things. But then there's people on the other side that just let anything go. And then there's they feel like that's loving, just letting anything go. Yeah. And that's not loving at all. So the examples that we kind of came up with right off the bat were, when we love our children, we're going to discipline them. We're going to train them. We're going to tell them not to play in the street. Right. The obvious example, don't go play in the street or drink poison. I remember one time I sprayed for some ants in our house and I left the bottle out. And Jeremiah crawled up to it. He's like, yeah, good parent, right? And he started sucking on it. Oh. Yes. And I took it away pretty quickly, and then we called poison control, and we said, no, you can't have this. Well, he wasn't too happy. I mean, he took away his toy. But this was not good for him. No. And as a loving parent, we would say that wouldn't be loving if I let him keep sucking on the poison. It wouldn't have been good for him. So in that aspect, there are a couple of times where we say, you can't do this because it is good for you and because I love you. Yeah. And if we know someone in our life that is destroying their life, whether it's something as destructive as gambling or alcoholism or some kind of addiction, or something as simple as just, not paying attention to their family. I feel like we need to step in and say something because we love, right?
Yeah. So you say that's a good example. You think of a parent and a child. So I think the premier example is, what does Christ say?
Yes.
What did he teach us? What's his example from Scripture?
Yes.
Well, because he is the ultimate example of love. So if we want to know what love is, we first look to him and we see what that looks like.
That's right.
So I actually have Romans 5:8 says, but God commendeth his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So obviously taking the first step, we were sinners. We were not lovely at all, and yet he looked and he loved us.
Right, and that should be our example, that yes, this world is sometimes hard to love. Yeah. But, this is my favorite verse in all the Bible because it's just the gospel wrapped up in one, and I get what I don't deserve. I deserve judgment, but because of his love. So now, because of his love, I want to demonstrate that love to people around me.
Right.
Now, I don't always do that pretty well, but I try. I work on it, and I'm like, okay, I want to deny myself here, and I want to do what Christ says. And you see, that was a transition right there.
Nice.
Which brings us to John 15,
That's right.
13, right? Yes. So greater love hath no man than this, that man laid down his life for his friends.
Yes. So
that's the greatest love.
Yes, I mean, and that's what Christ did, right?
Yeah.
Was the greatest love was he gave down his life. Not only did he give his life to his friends, but he gave his life for people that hated him, as Romans 5:8 points out.
Enemies.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were at enmity with him, and he still died for them. Yeah. And that's amazing. It's difficult for me to maybe give up my life for a friend. Like I'm going to jump on the grenade for my comrades, but for people that I don't like, or that don't like me, that's going to be hard. That's going to be very hard. But his example here, read it again, Chuck.
Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
Okay, and we could take that in many different ways. But I think the first thing is that, as a Christian, to show love, is to be sacrificial. You know, is to sacrifice our own wants, our own needs, and we see this biggest in marriage.
Yeah.
And you know, I could be a bully in my relationship and just I'm the man of the house and I can get what I want, or I can be a Christian, and Christians are to consider their spouse. Consider their kids. Consider how it's going to affect their community, how it's going to affect the church, you know, affect the world, and all their actions. So it's like it's not what I want; it's what God wants first, and then how that affects the rest of the family.
Well, I don't know. Thinking of the self-reflection and trying to decide whether or not I am loving, that's a pretty high measure right here.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm like, wow, well, I don't measure up to that. But, you know, when we read verses like this, we think, you know, if you love someone, you should be willing to lay down your life. And, you know, I think that's great. You know, Jesus is a great example and we should. But I think often, you know, you talk about marriage, but even in every relationship, it's like sometimes it might not be laying down your life as in dying for somebody, but sometimes it's laying down your wants. It's laying down your desires, your dreams, your whatever for somebody else, you know, and marriage, obviously for your spouse, but sometimes for your kids, it's like, I really want to do this, but that's not best for my kids right now. So I'm not going to do that. And it's like, when you get to the daily things, to me, that seems a lot harder because it's like, I rather the hypothetical, I'll die for you.
Yes, that's easy, right?
But
Well, not
like,
easy, but it may be one-time event.
But it's like, oh, but you mean daily I'm going to have to put up with this or that, you know, and it's like, that's a lot harder.
Right. And that's the call for a Christian, right? Is the daily, what I forget it's in Luke, where it says, take up your cross daily and deny yourself.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of the Christian creed, basically, is it's not about me, it's about Christ. And his love is a sacrificial love, is a giving love. And so that's our love. So when people say Christians aren't loving, well, they might be right on some of those cases because, well, we're human and we haven't been perfected quite yet. But give us, we're trying, we want to be loving, but that doesn't always mean we're accepting, and that's where we're going to get into the differentiation between loving. But do we give of our time? Do we give of our effort? Do we try to make time for people? That's how you should judge Christians, and not whether if they accept you, because that's a whole different, you know, ball of wax. Is, well, you and you guys' high standards. Well, it's not my high standards. It's well, they are mine, but it's Christ's. You know, Christ wants us to be, you know, without sin. Christ doesn't want sin. He wants us to encourage one another, not to go into the things of this world, you know, stuff like that. And I know it plays its out in many different ways, and I don't want to get in the minutia of all that. But that's how we should judge. Is like, okay, is someone being self-serving? Are they being arrogant? Are they being boastful? Is it all about them? And I find that a lot of Christians try not to. You know, are they perfect? No, I have to look at myself in the mirror a good bit and be like, am I, you know, wanting to be seen here? And I don't think the world cares. You know, honestly, they really don't care. In fact, if you go and watch sports, it's pretty apparent they don't care about that stuff. It is all about them. You know, look at me. You know, they might pop the jersey and say the team, but it is because of them. You know, but anyway, that is the example, and because most of the time we are not going to literally die for our family.
No.
Right.
You know, when you talk about the difference between love and acceptance, it reminds me of the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the young man comes to Christ and asks him, you know, what's the greatest commandment? He tells him, you love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he asks him, who's my neighbor?
Right. And he goes into the story.
And he goes into the story. So you have the priest and the Levite that come by, and they pass by on the other side and want to help this man that's been beat up and left to die. And because they're separating themselves from this individual, they don't, you know, their legal system, their laws, their idea says I can't do anything for him.
Yeah, because he's a half-breed.
Right. But yet the Samaritan comes along and he cares for him.
Yes.
He provides for him. He actually, you know, binds up his wound, cares for him, and leaves him in someone else's care until he gets better. So who's the neighbor? He says,
right.
Obviously, it's the one that cared for him.
Absolutely.
So it's the difference there is that you had two that didn't do anything because they didn't accept them because it was a half-breed. Yeah. But yet the other one came by and showed love and compassion.
Absolutely.
So,
that's love. Yeah. I mean, and the story doesn't have anything to do with their belief systems, because at the time, Samaritans and Jews, they were definitely separated. You know, they did not gathered and meet together in the same temple and all that. So I can be loving. In fact, a loving thing to do at times is to correct someone. To reprove the world of unrighteousness is a loving thing to do, because this person is going to hell. And because I care, I don't want to see them going to hell. Now, they may disagree with me. In fact, most people do. They say you're a wacko, you're judgmental. But if I say nothing, then I'm like that guy that's on the street and the bridge is out, and I'm just letting people drive right by, and I'm not trying to stop them. And hey guys, the bridge just got washed out, and they're going down there. Yeah. I'm not a loving person, and I know I can do that every single day and be annoying. But it is at the heart of evangelism. People are like, why do you guys evangelize? It's so annoying. I'm like, well, because we care. Because we are loving. We want to see people come to Christ. Not just go to heaven, but to come to Christ and understand the love that we've experienced. Yeah. And when you've experienced the love of Christ, you want to share that. Yeah. You want other people to experience it too. Just like any other thing in life. The hippies, man, when they're doing drugs and stuff, they're like, hey, man, try this stuff. It's the greatest thing. Until it's not. But they want to share what they got. And I'm like, well, what's so wrong with me sharing what I have? It's just that you assume, because I'm sharing Christ, that it comes with all these laws and rules and things like that you have to give up. But that's not necessarily the case. Yeah. But anyway, so what is another thing? Well,
when you're talking about reproving, we know that there is, like you said, a proper way to call out sin. Sure. And so, we do want to be loving, but we can't always be accepting of everybody's behavior. Sometimes there is a time that we have to speak. And so Ephesians 5:11 says, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. And then Galatians 6:1 says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Yeah. So we can't just accept everything. Right. And, just like you talked about, with a parent to a child, you can't accept all their behavior. If you do, then you surely don't love your kid.
We're going to spoil them.
And everybody would agree that it's like, well, that is not loving to just let, your 2-year-old, your 6-year-old, whatever year old, to do whatever they want. It's going to destroy them. So nobody would think that that's loving, is to just, oh, well, that's what they wanted to do. Right. It's like, that's not how it works.
Right. Love is not letting them do or get everything they want. Yeah. I feel like that's the mantra of today is like, well, I love my kids, so that's why I let them stay on the iPad for 8 hours a day. Yeah. You do not love your kid if you do that. You're neglecting him and you're letting him rot away if that's what you do. Yeah. And we're not trying to, this is not an episode about being on an iPad for 8 hours a day, but I'm just saying that come on, that's not good parenting. Right. And, and to say no to your kid wants ice cream every day. Well, you're going to have a fat kid if you give him everything he wants to eat. You have to say no because you love them, because it's good for them. Where were you? You were going to the reprove one. Man, I forget what you said there that sparked something. But go ahead.
It's interesting that, when we look at Galatians 6:1, we can't look past the second part of the verse where it says, when you're restoring someone, you do it in a spirit of meekness. Yep. What's your motivation? Yep. Yeah. Is your motivation to call them out and say, hey, you're
I'm better than you?
Yeah. Or are you going to say, hey, look, we need to have a talk. Yeah. I see something here, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but this could be a problem, and I just want to point it out to you and kind of encourage you to take a look at what the Scripture says about it. It's a difference there in how you approach it.
Absolutely.
And whether or not you're doing it out of a spirit of love or you're just doing it to lay the hammer down.
That's right, and you can tell, because there's some people who enjoy doing that. I don't necessarily enjoy doing that. I know that might shock people, but I don't enjoy pointing out other people's faults. But if I see it's destructive to the church or to relationships around them, I want to say something because I love them, and because I know people, and people are usually like talking behind people's backs and like, that person over there is kind of a jerk, and we stay away from them. I'm like, if you want to be included, you got to stop this, and it's a hard conversation to have with them, and it should be Not that often, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, there's those people that are like, well, I just got to correct everybody because the Bible says. And I'm like, stay in your lane.
Well, it's good to let the Holy Spirit do his job.
Yes.
And he's really good at convicting us. He's really good at directing us and redirecting us. And so we often get in the way of that, you know, especially I would say in marriage as a wife, you know, it's like you want to, let me try to help you. Let me try to, you know, it's like, it's
what are you
not
saying?
my job. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, I think, you know, it's just a natural thing. It's like you want to make somebody better. So, but Ephesians 4:15 says, but speaking the truth in love. And we always hear that phrase, speak the truth in love. And
truth is important.
Truth is important, but it is also important to speak the truth in love.
Right.
And so in talking about this and like, you know, times where you do correct people, do either one of you have a time where somebody spoke the truth in love?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of off the top of my head. I mean, when I was in Bible college, I was caught up in some stuff, and I was in a depressive time. And my roommates, I had one roommate and his friend, they came up to me and just said, "What's going on? You know, something's going on." And so I told them what was going on, and we prayed and all that, and it got it off my chest. And they immediately wanted to go out witnessing. They're like, "We're going to Hennepin Avenue. You want to go with us?" And I was like, I don't deserve it. He's like, yeah, exactly. None of us deserve it. And I was like, wow, that is an amazing grace moment, because I felt like, you know, I was caught up in some sin, and here are these guys. I just confessed some stuff, and you know, I know God forgave me, but I don't feel
Right, you don't feel
like going out and telling people about Christ, but I should, because I've been forgiven, and that's exactly what I did. And so a lot of people have come to me in good ways and corrected me on a number of things. And I know it's shocking, but I'm not perfect. And a number of people feel like they can come to me. I don't know. In the last couple of years, man, I've had, 6 or 7 people come and correct me. I don't care. I'm like, I'll hear them out, and if they're right, then why not, you know, change? You know, it's most of the time they are right. I don't always see my flaws, and so I don't know. What about you, Chuck?
No, I'm the same way. I feel the same way, that you're going to have not only you correcting someone else, speaking the truth, but if somebody's coming to you, to listen.
Yeah.
You know, pay attention. If they're doing it in a spirit of love, which is what we're told to do.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to have faults. We all have rough edges. We all have issues. I mean, I think of a time just yesterday where I had to tell my wife, okay, I'm sorry. You know, this is a problem.
Well, that saves me having a conversation.
This one's simple. It was just simply interrupting.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know what
and
that
it's
is
like
about.
interrupt, and it's like, I'm sorry. You know, I got to do better at that. And she didn't ask me to. I just realized it, and it's like, I got to do better. And you know, I'm sorry. That's not something. I got to let you finish what you're saying. So you know, it's a spirit of love that we come in and hear someone, because we're supposed to do that. You know,
Absolutely.
we're supposed to encourage one another. We're supposed to speak the truth.
Yeah, we're being conformed to the image of Christ. Yes. Christ is the perfect example. We're not. You know, we're getting there, and when we're made aware of these things, it's up to us to, yes, you're right. I should be more concerning of the needs of these people. You know, I should pay attention what's going on over here.
Well, I could see how people would feel uncomfortable with that and then say you're not loving, because I will say, when I've had people point out things in my life, it doesn't feel good.
What, 2 people in your whole life? Oh.
It doesn't feel good, and so I can understand that. You know,
do a little bit more wrong things, and then you get used to it.
So you have the choice to either be like, well, who are you to tell me, to correct me or whatever, or you're just judging and look at yourself or whatever, or I can choose to, like,
be humble.
wow, yeah, like they're right. Like, I really shouldn't have done that, or whatever it was, you know, and really consider and repent. And I'm like, wow, but that's hard. So, I mean, I understand the reaction of just like, you know,
right. Get your back up and be like, who are you?
What's your deal?
And the tough part is hearing it from people that we feel like are not as worthy. Mm-hmm. And this is a big problem in the church, you know, because most people, if the pastor says something, then it's good. You know, but if it comes from, and I could name some names, but I'm not going to, but because some people might know these people, but if it comes from someone who we just felt like, man, they've got a lot to learn, and what do they? But you know what? If they point out something that I don't see, that why why can't I humble myself? And I should be able to humble myself. I want to go quickly to another, before, because I know we're running low on time. We want to get to 1 Corinthians 13.
That's right.
But the Jesus eating with sinners. And so this is what you hear all the time, that, well, Jesus ate with sinners and he wasn't very judging and all this thing. Let me correct the notion and the myth that Jesus ate with sinners. Like, did he eat with sinners? Yes. Jesus changed the atmosphere. Jesus changed Mary Magdalene's life.
Yeah.
She didn't stay a prostitute. And then she invited him to dinner. And she brought her friends, sure, but Jesus spoke truth and changed the group.
Yeah.
And Zacchaeus invited him to come to his house. Zacchaeus' life was changed forever. He became a follower. Same thing with Matthew. He said, follow me. And then he invited people, and they're like, oh, he's eating with tax collectors. He was no longer a tax collector. That's how people saw him. They saw him as prostitutes, tax collectors, and whatever Zacchaeus was. I thought he was a tax collector too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of the song.
Man.
Yeah, he was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. But the fact that he didn't just go and hang out and accept them for what they were.
Yeah.
You know, like the woman caught in adultery, he talked him down, you know, like, hey, who's here to judge you? And his final words were, go and sin no more.
That's
so
right.
he didn't accept the sin,
Nope.
Yeah.
but he did show love and grace. So its acceptance is, Jesus didn't just hang out with these people and accept their life. He came in and changed them, and they conformed to him.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So
Yeah, he said he didn't come for those who didn't need a physician.
That's right.
He came for the
Yeah.
sick. So those who thought that they were in good shape and didn't need any help, that's not who he came from. He came
That's
for
the point.
those who actually realized, I got a problem.
That's right.
Which is step number one for us, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
got to understand, what is our position? We are in need of a Savior.
And as Christians, we need to be aware of that and be patient sometimes, because new Christians, they do stupid things. Old Christians do stupid things.
Yeah.
So we have to be forbearance. So it's like, okay, so that's kind of the practical outworks of what love looks like. Well, we have a chapter, and for the sake, I know we use King James and all that, and it's kind of they say charity a good bit. It's the same word for love.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say love, because
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. I hope that people understand what I'm doing there. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. Charity maybe has a little bit different aspect of it, the outworkings, but we're not getting into that right now. So 1 Corinthians 13 is a good representation of what love actually is. So if we're going to judge people on whether they love or not, well, this is where we're all going to be found wanting, because this
Yeah.
list is actually pretty impressive
Yeah.
when you read it. Okay, Chuck, you got it, or?
I'm going to let Sarah.
Okay.
It's kind of small for my eyes.
Okay, well, I have this in New King James. So,
Okay.
So it goes
Switch
with
it
the
to love.
thing. Yeah. It says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal.
And that's what people accuse Christians of being sometimes.
Yeah. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not.
Okay, wait, we want to stop. Okay, love is long suffering, suffers long.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we like suffer, but it's just like we are patient. We bear with people for a long time,
Right.
as God did with us.
Yeah.
He was very patient. If God wasn't patient, none of us would be here.
Nope.
We would not be here. Okay, carry on.
All right. And is kind. Love.
Okay, kind is very open-ended. That's kind of at the heart of this. You're not being kind.
Yeah.
Well, that is an open-ended word. Like, I think I'm being kind by pointing out some things or by doing these different things, but it does check your motivation.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think kindness, like we all have a picture in our minds when we hear somebody's loving. We have a different picture when we hear somebody's kind. Like,
Yeah, and
it's
that's the difference. We're trying to paint this picture of love because people are like, we make up our own image of what love is,
Yes.
but it actually works out. Love isn't love until you give it away. That's what Michael W. Smith said, right?
That's right. Okay.
Love is kind. Love is...
Love does not envy.
Okay, love does not envy. This is where it gets tough, right? So envious. Okay, go ahead.
Love does not parade itself.
Okay, that's interesting. I've never read this in New King James. Parade itself. So boasting.
Is
right?
not puffed
Okay,
up. So
right.
that's the
Puffed
next
up.
one.
Yeah, boasting.
Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own.
Okay, so when you say rudely, does that mean like when I can go on the streets and just say God hates sinners and you're going to hell, and just have a sign out there with no context, is that rude, or interrupting people? Because my message is more important than your message, or should I wait to hear them out and then tell them the truth? We got to think about these things.
Yeah, I think when I see those three, I kind of take them in context together. I mean, obviously you can separate them, but you're not puffed up, you're not rude, you don't seek your own. I think of the pomp and circumstance.
Oh my goodness,
of religion.
Yes.
Where you're, the dress, the appearance, the whole way you carry yourself is just it's self-serving.
Yes. Like the evangelist or the apostle, or even worse, the bishops and the popes and all that. Anyway, but yes.
Is not provoked.
Not provoked. That is a tough one. And I was talking to my son about kind of this aspect, because we were talking about judging and things like that. And I'm like, look, it's not easy. When you go out there, you sometimes get confused, where the scriptures say we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual powers and all that. Sometimes it gets difficult to differentiate, and we start getting mad at them because they're the ones that we see it, but we have to pay attention.
Well,
that's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's easy to let our emotions get provoked.
It is.
Well, and that's where I feel like James comes to mind, that whoever has control of their tongue is a perfect man. Because when you're provoked, generally speaking, we want to say something.
Yes, we do.
And if we could just learn to be slow to speak.
Or not say anything at all.
Yeah. I'm like, anyway, that would go a long way.
Jesus didn't open his word. He didn't open his mouth when he was being beaten and all that.
Yep.
Probably best not to say anything.
Yeah.
Because he might have brought judgment down.
Thinks no evil.
Thinks no evil. Well, this is taking it a step further. One thing is, what was the one right before it?
Provoked.
Is not provoked.
Is not provoked. And so we got to control that. The other one's thinking.
Yeah, now the thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some people are like, well, as long as you don't do anything, well, this
Thinks
even
no
is a
evil.
little bit more than that. Don't even think it.
Yep.
Does not rejoice in iniquity.
Does not rejoice in iniquity. I think we lost our recording over here, but I think we're fine. Does not rejoice in iniquity. And here's the difference again about accepting. It's like, I want to love you, but I don't rejoice in your sin and what I believe is sin. And I can still love a homosexual, but I cannot rejoice in your lifestyle. I can't rejoice in your sin. Same thing with people shacking up together. I can show love, I can give you truth, and I can help you move, and but I can't accept your lifestyle, and so I can't accept, what does it say, iniquity?
Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth.
Rejoices in the truth. Very important.
And then bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things.
Okay, so that's where it gets complicated here. The all things here, bears all things, believes all things. What? We believe everything? No.
You believe everything?
Right.
No.
We when you love, especially in the context of marriage, that this is, I'm willing to believe, give you the benefit of the doubt, basically.
That's a good way to put it.
And
you're going to listen and pay attention and take it in. And you're not necessarily going to agree, but you're not going to think somebody's just lying to you.
Right, exactly. And so that is the goal right there. So when people say, Christians are judging, we need to self-reflect and look at that and say, let's go back to the scripture. Am I doing these things? I don't want to blaspheme the name of Christ like the Jews were doing. They're blaspheming the name of Christ amongst the Gentiles. I think you had a verse on that somewhere. Or maybe I wanted that verse and we just didn't get it. But anyway, it's somewhere in there in the Bible. They blaspheme the name of the Lord all the day long because they weren't doing the things God wanted them to do. And so we get so caught up in doing all the things that we've forgotten that maybe we need to, our motivation and everything has to be behind that. Yeah. So pay attention to that stuff. When I don't always like being accused of being unloving because of the acceptance aspect, but it does make you check yourself and be like, okay, am I being loving? I think the acceptance part we can discuss, and I think most people can reasonably understand, okay, the difference between love and acceptance, because they do the same thing with us. Sinners don't accept us, but would we say they hate us? They might. I don't know. But anyway, it's a challenging passages to consider for a believer.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Well, I do have this one last thing. It's love accepts people, but not necessarily their actions, which is true.
Right.
Acceptance without truth is shallow.
Is very shallow.
Truth without love is harsh.
Yes.
And biblical love holds both together. I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I like that. AI came up with that. So, yeah. And I was like, wow, that was pretty deep, actually, that the
The acceptance without truth is shallow, and I would say that's very true.
that's a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
We want to be accepted by the world. We don't want to offend the world. We want to be friends with them, but it's very, very shallow. But then truth without love
It's
is
harsh.
mean. Yeah. And we see
It's
that in
true.
some groups that's we're just giving them truth. And I'm like, yeah, but no one's listening to you because you're just harsh.
Yeah.
And so it's tough to get that balance. And I'm not saying we're perfect at it.
Yeah.
We try, and then we have to change. So be patient with us. You know, us Christians, we have to realize that we're held to a higher standard. And people are looking at us and they expect us to be perfect. And we're not.
No.
But we want to strive for what the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13 says. You know, when we want to love our neighbor, that's it.
Yeah.
So, any last words, Chuck?
No, I think that's it. Just I love you guys.
That's right. So, you have anything you need to correct me on? So, now's not the time. So, all right. Well, I think up next is either the song or Lydia or Elizabeth.
The Mike Charleston Show.
All right, guys. This is our game time, and Elizabeth is joining us right now. You're a little taller than your mom, so not as much headroom, but that's all right. You're not putting on the headphones or anything. You don't.
No.
Okay, that's cool. So this is called over under, I guess. So Chuck says we're gambling now.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
That's right. So the idea of this game, we'll see how well this does, because I don't think last week's game turned out very well. So she's going to give us a question, and then there's going to be a number of something, and it's going to be pretty close, and we're going to have to guess, is it over that number or under that number?
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty simple,
Yep,
right?
yep.
It's a pretty easy concept. I've never gambled in my life, so but I know the concept of this, but it's a fun game. I've seen this before somewhere, and we'll see how it goes. So what do we have?
Well, it's the first one is how many times is love, the word specifically, no forms.
Okay,
in the
what do you mean
Bible?
no forms? Like no,
Like loved,
Not
loved.
lovely, lovely.
Just love.
Just
Yes,
love.
love.
Okay.
like the Greek word agape? Or are you
guess.
just going with
Just
the
love.
English
Just
word
love.
love?
The English word love.
In the King James.
Yes.
Okay, love. How many times does it show up in the Bible?
Yes.
Okay, what's the number?
250.
250.
Yeah. Over or under?
250 times in the Bible. Chuck looks like he's thinking about it, and he's going through Genesis right now. Now he's in Exodus. No.
Scanning. No.
My initial guess is that it is over. Definitely over. But that's without loves, loved, loveth,
Right.
loving.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I was processing through.
Right.
So I'm thinking under. on
Oh,
that
Chuck's
one.
going under. I thought he always goes over. But what is it?
It is over.
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 Yes.
The answer is 310.
Yeah, I
Okay.
knew it. I was thinking it was around 310. So.
Yeah, that's what you were thinking, huh?
All right. So, yeah. Okay. So that's one. All right.
Okay.
What do we got next?
Next one is how many times is Jesus in the Bible?
Jesus is in the whole Bible.
and
He's
then-
throughout the whole Bible.
1,000.
Oh, that's the number. 1,000 times. Okay. This is definitely under.
Yeah, definitely under.
You think so too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's definitely under.
Yeah, it's under, but not by much.
Oh.
It's 983.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So much for the definitely under.
Yes. Yeah. I'm actually shocked about
Yes,
that.
I am
So, I know his name's in there a good bit, but I'm figuring the New Testament,
Right.
1,000's a lot.
That's a lot.
So I'm like, we barely got in there. So, okay.
Yep. All right. The next one is how many times is faith in the Bible? And the number is 275.
275. Okay. The Greek word pistis, huh? Mm-hmm. And
It's only
faith.
twice in the Old Testament.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
So everything's in the New Testament.
Faith in the New. I'd be curious. In the Old Testament, I know it's the just shall live by faith in Habakkuk.
Yeah.
Where's the other time?
Oh, you kind of put me on the spot.
Okay.
I have to pull my note. I can't remember.
They don't have faith that much in the Old
The
Testament?
word faith itself only appears twice in the Old Testament.
They have believe or something like that?
You see the whole idea of faithfulness or,
Right,
or
okay.
faithful and, the different
Gotcha.
varieties of it, but not faith itself.
Interesting. So the number is what?
275.
So at least 273 in the New Testament. That's close.
273. What do you mean?
Well, 2 in the Old Testament, so minus 2 is 273
Okay,
in the New.
gotcha. I've seen your math. I see your brain working there, Chuck.
I think it's over.
Over? Interesting. I'm going to go under.
It is under.
Yeah.
247.
Okay.
Not by
I
much.
knew it was close.
Not by
Yeah.
much.
Okay. It was close. All right. Yeah. I'm going to the
I
boat
did that
tonight.
word study, so I was trying to go. Like, it's
Yeah.
close.
It's close. And that's the whole point here, right? Okay.
yeah.
What do we got next?
All right, the next one is
The number of Kendrick movies?
this one's salvation. How many times is salvation? And the number is 100.
100. Salvation. Not
Salvation.
saved or saves, or
No,
even though
just
those aren't in
salvation.
there that much. Salvation. I got my answer. But go ahead.
I'm going under.
Yeah, me too. I think it's significantly under.
Nope, it's over.
Whoa.
Wow.
164.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Salvation. In the whole Bible?
Yeah.
You know what? There's a lot of it in Psalms. Like, I am your salvation. I am. I don't know all the references. You don't have it right
I
there.
don't have all the references, no.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking New Testament because
I did too.
We talk,
You just
we
think
talk about
about-
salvation and being
Right.
saved, but the people being saved. So whatever.
Yeah.
All right, we blew that one.
Yes, we did.
All right, this is the last one. How many times is life in the Bible?
Life.
Yeah, and the number is 550.
550. So life. There is a good bit of life from
Yes, there
Genesis
is. There's
to
a lot.
yeah,
That's
life.
a good bit.
Not
Yeah, I
lives.
think I'm going to have to go over.
No, just life.
I know no lives, just life. Life sorge. Right?
Sure. I don't know.
I don't know that one either.
Yeah. So you're gonna say
I'm going to go over.
me too. I'm gonna say over for sure.
It is under.
Oh, come
man,
on.
we're just.
It's 450.
If it's under, isn't that death?
Yeah, that's true.
6 feet under.
We didn't do too good on that one either.
No, not that
These-
one.
these
So
are-
it was how many times is it that?
450.
And what was the number? 550. Man, we were way off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over under. We started out well and then we flamed out at
Yep.
the end. Yeah, we blew up.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, cool. That's all you have.
That's all I have.
All right. We need to hear feedback on these games and see, because I think this or that is funner, but funner. Hey, I listened to a guy that said that's legitimate. That's a legitimate word. I know it's not, but whatever. So
How
all
many
right.
times
Thank
is funner in the.
yeah, I'm going to look up on the dictionary right now. But, okay, well, thank you, Elizabeth. And I guess we're going to have Sarah's song coming up, or I don't know what it is next. But, all right, thanks.
Music with Sarah.
What song do you like?
Alrighty, we got the song of the week here, and this is a little different because we have no producer in studio here, so we'll see how this works. First time going.
We'll see.
So yeah, there's Sarah. Okay, all right. So as you know, we recorded this segment first, so that's why. But anyway, what is your song of the week?
So this song is called "The Hope of Christ" by Aaron Williams, and it's on the album called "The Hope of Christ." And it's
Checking.
Aaron Williams with Shane and Shane, and it actually, I guess, came out a couple years ago, but it's fairly new to me in the last couple of months.
I think it's new to me because have I heard it?
You've heard it.
Okay,
but
just don't know the title.
Yeah, exactly. But this song to me was a instant
Classic.
winner. Yeah, I was like, all right. And I've listened to it, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of times. And the whole album, by the way, is good. So when y'all check it out, just listen through the whole album. I actually did that, which is different because these days you tend to just listen to a song. But I was like, I want to hear the whole album, and I did. And it's just, wow.
Wow.
It's
Who is
all-
this?
Aaron Williams and Shane. It's like
Oh, okay.
worship
Oh, yeah, that's
initiative
right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So anyway, but this song obviously is called "The Hope of Christ." And to me, hope is one of my favorite things about Christianity.
Okay.
And when I look at people,
What are some other things that your favorite?
Okay, I have a lot of favorite things.
What are a few
Love
of
would be
your
a big
favorite
one
things?
too.
Okay.
But hope, I feel like is one of the biggest things that stands out about Christians is that we have hope.
Yes.
And when you look at people in the world and, even just, being in Montreal with a bunch of people, and you don't know where everybody is, but
there's a lot of hopelessness.
there's a lot of hopelessness.
And godlessness.
That too.
Godlessness.
Yes, there is. But I love that as Christians, we have hope. And we have the hope of heaven, obviously, which is exciting to think about. But we also have hope in this life, that the things that we face, that he's going to be there with us. And that's kind of what the song talks about. It starts with what anchor holds when others fail, what lets the soul sing, it is well. And I know we grew up with the old hymn, it is well, and we know the story of what happened or whatever, and that's pretty cool. But it's like, what brings us to the place where we can sing, it is well, when we go through trying circumstances, when, we all face different things, and so life gets hard.
Right, because it doesn't make sense when things are falling apart all around you, and yet we still... all is well. People kind of like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense, but that's what I love about the gospel, is that it doesn't have to make sense. It's true.
Well, it makes sense, but yes.
Okay. But I guess to the world, I think it doesn't make sense. How can you have hope when you go through all these tragic things? And so that's what I love about it. And the chorus goes, I lift my eyes to where my help comes from. It always makes me think, I'm pretty sure it's Psalm 121. I didn't look it up, but that's one of my favorite Psalms. And so that's just where it starts. And then says, my fire by night, my shelter in the storm. And I'm like, wow. You think about the fire by night that led the Israelites when, they had no idea what they were doing. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know. They just knew God had just delivered them out of Egypt in a miraculous way. And so now it's like, where are we going? We'll just follow the fire.
And the cloud.
And the cloud. Yep. And then my shelter in the storm, and you just think about, again, the storms of life, the things we face, and him being that shelter. It's
I can relate to that because I do not like storms.
No, you don't.
And as long as I'm inside, I feel good. Yeah. It's not so much, it's lightning and the thunder, and something in my childhood must have struck with me. But anyways, it's weird because lightning can be 10 feet away. As long as I'm inside, I feel I feel secure. But if I'm outside, oh man, it's not good. But being inside that shelter helps.
Yeah. No, shelter in a storm is good. I like storms, but there are still times where I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit...
Maybe you're the reason why we go through storms then.
Whatever. I don't think so. And then it ends, it has maybe a bridge or a third verse or something that says, till on that day when Jesus comes, when every lie will be undone and every wrong will be made right.
Right.
And, you just think all the misunderstandings of this life, all the things we go through, one day it's all going to come together. It's all going to make sense, and we're all going to see Jesus face to face. And it's all, that's the hope. That's the ultimate. That's what we look forward to. So I just think it's a great song. It's beautiful, and I think people should check it out.
Yeah. Well, it's Worship Initiative, which usually they do a lot of covers, but are these all original songs?
This was Aaron Williams wrote this one.
Oh, okay. So, and he was part of this with Shane Everett or Shane Bernard, one of them.
I think both on this one.
But yeah, okay, both of them. Okay, so cool. But yeah, go check it out. It's I don't know where you can find it because it's Worship Initiative. I guess it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. Right. So yeah,
go check it out.
The Mike Charleston Show is brought to you by Fellowship of Believers. For more information, go to our website at fellowshipofbelievers.org. Thank you for listening. We hope we have encouraged you to stand strong in the Lord Jesus and grow in Him.